Hey guys, it's Ben Quintero, Honeydew Homestead. I thought I'd bring you along for some of the behind the scenes of one of the projects that I will be working on very soon. This is sort of some of the setup work involved, and I know normally I kind of show you just the finished product, but I thought I would kind of integrate some of my thought process into what's coming up next. Let me show you a little bit of what I'm working on and how it's coming along. I did already start on this and I didn't think to record it because I normally don't do this. But if you do want to see my thought process and some of the build step or some of the build projects that I take and sort of where my mind is at and how I like going step by step with some of these things, let me know. Drop me a comment below. If you just want to see the build and and move on, let me know about that as well. I'm always interested in hearing some feedback. Let me show you what I'm working on right here. All right, first of all, I want to apologize if the audio isn't great. This isn't my normal setup, but we're going to go ahead and give it a shot because I wanted to bring you guys along for some of the behind the scenes work of what I am doing. So, long story short, I'm trying to put some sort of lighting solution at the end of my driveway. I have a very long driveway. I'm just outside of city limits, and so we really don't have a lot of street lights. My house is also right on a bend, which just makes it dark and treacherous, and I'm trying to make sure that Mrs. Honeydew makes it home safe and that I don't have to fish her out of the ditch in the middle of the night. So, I've been playing around with some solar solutions. The reason why I'm going with a solar option is because I don't really have any power source out there, and it would be incredibly expensive to run, 300 foot of cable and then trench all of that and get it up to code and tie it into the house that's tied into the grid, and it's a big ordeal. I'd obviously have to bring an electrician on to do that work. I'd rather avoid all of that, especially if my goal is just to have a couple of lights down there, really just to light up the entrance, because if you're driving in the dark and you're pulling into the driveway, once your headlights are flashing onto the driveway, it's easy to see. The problem is that you can't see the driveway until you've already turned. And so we just need some lights down there to guide our way through. So that's the backstory, and that's why I'm going with solar. It's really just trying to avoid having to tie to the grid, having to get permits, having to trench, and all of that. So here were a couple of options that I had considered. Initially, I was going with something like this, building sort of a box that I had built one of these in the past before, actually a little library box that I did for my old neighborhood. And I was going to do something very similar to it. And I wanted it to be kind of high up off the ground because I was hoping to get some clearance and maybe some better sunlight. But in reality, I am surrounded by 100-foot pine trees. This, having it on a 6-foot pole or a 2-foot pole is not going to make much of a difference. And this kind of, honestly, this 6-foot pole and then this giant box sitting on top of it, it feels like it would stick out like a sore thumb. What I would really want to see is something that is a little more inconspicuous, a little lower to the ground. I can kind of maybe nestle it in with a couple of shrubs to the left and to the right of it, and so it won't seem as bad. The unfortunate part is that the road is on the south side of my property, the driveway entrance, which means I have to have the solar panel facing towards the road, and so I have to do everything I can to really try to mask that solar panel as much as possible. And so, again, like I said, I'm just really telling you guys this because these are the things that just keep me up at night. It's the tiny details. Even though I might put out a 10 or 15-minute video, there really is a lot of thought that goes behind some of these things, especially the build projects, because I want to build them so that I don't have to build them twice. And so there is a lot of thought that does typically go into some of these. And so that's basically it in terms of the backstory. I think right now this is the second iteration, and I'm really leaning towards this smaller one. It's a little lower to the ground. It's set up in a slightly different way, where basically the solar panel is going to rest right on top of this pitch, and I think it's going to work out pretty good. I guess I'll keep you guys along, and I'm just going to keep working. If that's all you cared about and you just wanted to see what I'm up to, you're welcome to hit the like button now and step out. But if not, welcome aboard, and I'd love to have you through the entire video. Here's a couple more details in terms of the measurements. I'm really aiming for about 6.5 by 6.5 on the interior space. The reason why I'm reserving that much space inside is because I'm trying very hard to set it up so that I not only have room for the charge controller that's going to go into this box, I also need room for at least one battery. And right now, this isn't exactly the battery I have, but I have something that looks kind of like this. It's a 7 amp hour battery, and hopefully it lasts a good amount of time. If not, though, the reason why 6.5 by 6.5 I think will be a good dimension is because I could also upgrade to something like a lithium iron phosphate, 10 or 12 amp hour battery, and it all fits in the same dimensions. Most of these battery cells are about 6 by 2.5 and usually 3.5 to 4 inches tall. And so as long as you have that general space reserved for a battery, you should be fine. Now, the reason why I'm making it 6.5 by 6.5 is it allows me to, if I need to, put 2 batteries into this box. So I could run them. Ooh, this is the part I'm going to have to do some research on. I don't remember if it's in series or in parallel. The one that gives me more capacity, not more voltage. I don't want to up it to 24. I just want to keep it at 12, but just double the capacity. Trust me, I'll do the research before I wire it. But it will allow me to keep 2 batteries in here if I need to double my capacity. That's kind of where my head is at right now. And as for the charge controller, it's one of those little small, like 10 amp charge controllers. They're not super expensive. I don't think they were. It's been a while. I actually bought it a long time ago, and so I kind of don't remember how much I spent on it, but that's okay. I have it now, so it's probably worth twice as much. Man, prices these days are just crazy. I am curious, though, while I'm working on this stuff, have you guys ever thought about doing this? I know there are boxes, like charge controller boxes, that I could possibly use instead, but it seemed, I don't know, it seemed like this felt like a better solution. I could be wrong. I don't know. I like building stuff. That's really what it is. It's just an excuse for me to make something cool. There's no real justification. So do you guys prefer building something on your own? Do you like just buying something? I know it can be frustrating sometimes to just want to move on, right? You just want to oh, this will be interesting. Now granted, these are just stock models. I didn't make those models. I just imported those from the Sketchup library, so I will have to find something that fits. If I can't find a lock or something that fits, I'll definitely have to just kind of cut it or carve it. Keep in mind, I'm trying to keep this box as small as possible, which is why the trim here on the side is really only about 3/4 of an inch square, roughly. And so there's not a whole lot of meat here to tie into, but I didn't necessarily want to make a larger box just because. I could make this door taller as well. I thought about doing it. This piece here is actually, I want to say 3.5? 3.5. It's 3.5 inches on purpose because just in case, if I'm feeling fancy, maybe I want to reserve this to put like one of those little deck lights on here so that I have light that flashes on here so I can open this up in the dark and possibly work. Seems like maybe a waste of energy, so I may not do it, but at least if I build it with that space reserved, I can always go back and add it, especially if my math is off and I'm actually using way less energy than I think I am, which is highly unlikely, but at least I'll have the space and I'm not going to have to go rebuild this entire box just to get that working. Let's move this guy down a little bit. Sure. All right. So if we hide, you know what, why don't we group the hardware with the door? That sounds like a good idea. So if we hide that, you might hear my assistant gruffing in the background. She gets a little feisty sometimes. All right. I know I kind of brought you guys in just for the very last little bit, but I appreciate you hanging around. And with that being said, as always, you guys be good to each other, and I'll see you on the next one. I know it's cold out there, isn't it, Reese? It's that kind of day. That's why we're staying inside and we're making big plans, right? Big plans. Are you going to build this thing with me? She's like, oh my gosh. If I look away, maybe he'll just go away.